American Water Polo.
Hi, this is Damon Newman from American Water Polo, and we're here today with Mike Gordon to learn some of our best practices from experienced officials in our Behind the Whistle series. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good, Damon. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no problem.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know you pretty well, but how did you get started in officiating?
Well, I started officiating when I was still a player at Villanova. Tom Tracy actually invited me to go officiate some games, some high school games during it was my sophomore year at Villanova, and I really enjoyed it right from the start. Um, Great way to get back to the sport and stay involved with the sport. And that's where I started officiating. And then upon graduating from Villanova, I moved out to San Diego for just over 10 years and did a lot of officiating out there. And there was a lot more out there, all times of the year and all different levels, and really honed in on my skills out there, and became a good official, a confident and experienced official out there. And a couple years ago, I moved back here to the East Coast, and still officiating, coaching, still love the sport, love giving back, and really enjoy the officiating aspect of it.
Awesome. That's excellent. So typically, like when you arrive on deck, whether it's a pool you've known before or even maybe somewhere new, regardless of the level, what are some things you do when you first get there?
When I first get to the pool, number one, I look for my partner. If he or she is there, I'll go and talk to them for a little bit, and from there, if they are there or they're not there, I'll usually go and talk with the coaches, usually the head coach of the home team first, and then the visiting team, and just go over some of the things if I haven't been to the pool with the home team head coach, and ask any questions I might have, check the course, make sure everything's in good shape and ready to go. Find out from both coaches, if everybody got there on time, is ready to go at game time, or if there's going to be any delay or anything like that. Just so I'm fully prepared to go when that first whistle goes.
Cool. So, the more challenging games you referee, even some of the beginner games, collaboration is really key. And with your partner, what does a coverage area conversation sound like? What does that collaboration generally sound like? Whether it's the beginning of the game or during the game, obviously quarter break and things like that.
Well, it really depends on whether or not I've worked with my partner before. If it's somebody I've never worked with, before the game, we'll go over what areas we really want to be focusing on, as far as front court and back court. When you're watching the center, if you're comfortable taking that 4 spot while watching the center, depending on if they're at 5 meters, if they're at 8 meters, if they're at mid pool. And then go through some of the hand signals that we might use to, if we're not wearing headsets, to communicate what you want your partner to cover, or what you can cover. Whether it's patting your chest, saying I got this, I'm looking at it, or you're pointing with your finger over at a player, and communicating, non-verbally with just some actions with your partner from across the pool. And then at a quarter break. If there's a few double whistles in the first quarter or something like that, we'll talk about what he was looking at, what I was looking at, and what we want to change up in the next few quarters, so we make sure that we're not double overlapping coverage areas. And we can get that shored up hopefully at the end of the first quarter. And, sometimes if not, halftime, you continue that discussion. You talk about what the teams are trying to do, where they're trying to bring the ball, where they're trying to enter the ball, if they have a post up on the 2 post or the three post, a left-handed center, right-handed center, all those kind of things factor into our collaborating talks and what we look for in coverage.
Right.
Transition is another big part of it too. With transition, we want to make sure that lead referee gets out on that counter attack and is watching those first couple pairs, and then the backcourt referee wants to stay home and make sure you're not missing anybody and keeping all the pairs in between you, so nobody goes unwatched, especially in transition. It's a very big point of collaborating making sure that everybody's covered.
Yeah, yeah, I think that that's a really great point, is that transition. And it's not something that everybody talks about, is just how challenging that could be. And when especially when you get to the higher levels, and then that transition is that much more key to really keeping your eye on, whether that's an offensive, or whether that was an exclusion, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely got to try to see that first move. And, like you said, as you get up higher and higher in the levels, kids get a little more slick, know where refs are looking, or know where they're not paying full attention to. So you gotta be on them, see that first move, see who creates that first contact, and make judgments from there.
Right, right. So you talked a little bit about, obviously you've been, officiating for 10 plus years, coming back to the Philadelphia area from San Diego, coaching, probably throughout that time, and obviously playing at Villanova. We know that water polo is such a small community. So, what would be some of your advice on, how you navigate those relationships with coaches, with former players, with colleagues, and remain professional at the same time?
Yeah, said it's just a very small community with the water polo community, and it was really good when I came back. I noticed a lot of kids that I had coached and seen, as younger kids, and now they had grown up, gone to college, come back, and now they're doing coaching teams, high school teams, club teams out here. So it's great to stay in contact with people, and especially coaches. They can be it can be one of the biggest things when coaches and referees are kind of butting heads on what each one thinks is the right call out there. So maintaining a professional relationship takes work. You have to set some parameters in the game, but also, after the game or before the game, realize that, referees are human, coaches are human, people are competitive in nature, and that's part of sports. And it's just, it's all just part of it. And, you can be friendly, you can be cordial, but, at some point there has to be a limit where, if he's your friend or you're not your friend as a coach, there's got to be a line that they can't cross. And,
Right.
some ways I always use to, some things I always use to draw that line is to let them know clearly, verbally. You can talk to coaches. You don't have to yell at them. You don't have to, just keep your whistle in your mouth and not say anything. Sometimes it is better, during a timeout or a quarter break, if they have questions to ask you, they answer their questions politely with the rule book. Don't get sidetracked on doing too much else of your own opinion about it, but let them know where they stand and what you like about it and not.
Excellent. So yeah, that kind of leads me to my next question. Would be, what do you think some of the toughest parts about the game are to, officiate? Obviously there's so many moving parts in the sport. What's a really, something you kind of you think are really, hard to, to control, or to really watch in the game?
The answer to that question changes as your experience level changes. I know when I was first starting out officiating, I was very concentrated on, just what is a foul and what is not a foul, and things like that, and just kind of the X's and O's. And then as my experience level grew and I ref more games, I felt more confident in, not having to super analyze every single play out there. You've seen something before, you called it before, it's way easier the next time. So as far as growing with your experience level, as that grows, obviously you do more competitive games, the players' experience level gets better. You're going to see some new plays out there, some new things that you haven't seen before, and hopefully you're ready to see those and react in a positive way and a quick way. And then also as your experience grows, coaches, you can shift a little bit more focus on some of the other things. Coaches, the deck, helping your table out, helping newer officials that I'm working with, or if I'm working with more experienced officials, watch what they're calling, understand what they're calling, ask them questions and things like that. But yeah, it's all part of learning process and growing with experience. And there's a ton of difficult parts of the game. I'm still seeing things now that I've never seen before. It's just part of sports. You'll see crazy plays that you've never seen before at any level.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're right. It is. It's interesting that you answer like, there's no one really challenging way. You can't put your finger on just one thing. Like you said, it's constantly changing, and that's the challenging thing about our sport. That rules change, and players change. So I know that obviously the level changes as well. So speaking of like, the levels, right? You've worked a number of high level games throughout the years, obviously, whether it's club championships or, collegiate championships, high school games. What's one game that might stand out to you as memorable, whether it's positive or maybe it's something that, you came across that might have been, challenging?
If I think back, one of my first really big games I got was the 1800 boys final at Junior Olympics when it was up in Northern California, and the final was at Stanford in the Avery Pool, and the stands were packed. It was the most fans I'd ever had for a game. Most beautiful pool I've ever reffed at. If you've ever been to that Stanford quad.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a coliseum. It's really cool.
Exactly. It was such a cool experience. And yeah, I think it was back in, I want to say 2012, somewhere around then. And I got the call, that I got selected for the game, and it was, I was a little bit nervous going into it. But once you blow that first whistle, the people that assign you there trust that you're going to be there and do a good job. And once you blow that first whistle, you just kind of get locked into the game and call your game that you've been calling, every time. And it was a really cool experience. I forget the teams that were playing now, but it was a good game. Fans were great. And it was just an overall awesome experience to ref a big game in that atmosphere.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, obviously you left the game not really, I think a lot of officials, it's like, you leave a game where you don't necessarily remember who won or lost, but you remember that like the officials weren't really the focus of the game, right?
Yeah. Exactly. They took care of business themselves. And, I feel like most championship games I've been involved in, at that point, players just play. They want to win the championship. They don't want to get kicked out of the game. They want to play hard. They want to do the things right. And, championship games for me pretty much have been, a lot easier than some of the, third place games or some semifinal games when, especially these third place games get a little rough.
Right.
When teams aren't really playing for first, and they're pissed that they're not playing for first. So those can get a little hairy.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you like culminating on like your experience of the last 10 plus years and, having the knowledge that you have now, what do you think some of the pointers you would maybe give like your younger self just starting out? Some things to focus on, maybe something to avoid?
Oh, that's a good question. I would look back and say, I would tell myself both before and after the game when I was younger, just, sit down and get in a better mindset. Going to ref a game, it takes a lot of focus and it takes a lot of energy, especially when you're a young official to do a good job. And there's a lot of things that are thrown at you from, like I said earlier, with the individual calls, with the coaches, with some of the fans, stuff like that. And if you're not in a good mindset, you can let those things distract you from doing a good job. So one thing, I do now is before every game, I make sure that my mind is in a good spot. I'm ready to officiate the game. And I know in the past, especially when I was younger, I didn't really take the time to do that. I don't think I realized how much that could actually help. So that's one thing I would definitely tell myself to start doing from an earlier point.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. Actually, it's interesting. You do a bunch of you talk to some officials and you ask that question, and a lot of people answer it differently. And it's interesting to hear that's a great answer, and that's a I can obviously, relate to something like that. Is, you really have to have your mind into what you're doing to really, to be really good at it, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Mike, man, it's been really a pleasure chatting with you today, talking about water polo. This is Damon Newman from American Water Polo. Always check us out our website, AmericanWaterPolo.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram for other interviews and educational resources. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, man.
All right. Thanks, Damon.